All right, guys. So I know that some of you remember my podcast on failing. So I want to know, have you ever failed so hard that you start questioning your whole life? Well, as you remember, that was me, right? I bought my national coaching assessment. I had a meltdown in the shower like a baby. And then I sat in the rubble of my own ego, wondering what the hell I was going to do next and if there was even a point. But then something unexpected happened. Because of that failure, I know we talked about redirection, right? I ended up coaching my fiance. And what started as just this like practice session, it turned into one of the most intimate, emotionally connected moments of our relationship so far. So today, I am going to be breaking that down with my fiance. So if you ever thought failure was just about loss, this episode is about to change your mind. It's about getting real, getting raw, and getting the fuck over it. So let's go.
Welcome to the carnival. I'm the ringleader now. Won't hear a sound at all as I bury you 6 feet underground.
Okay, so like we talked about, right? Last time we talked about the science of failure, why your brain spirals, why one L turns into every L that you've ever taken. And by L, I mean loss, right? Loss, loser, you know the drill, right? And then we were talking about how to break that cycle. But what I didn't talk about was what happened after that meltdown and after I sat there and said, I'm going to do a redirection, right? So failure pushed me into this wonderful conversation with my relationship with my fiance. So I'm not going to tell this story alone, but instead, I've got my fiance right here with me today because what happened next is something we both felt in a way that we didn't expect. So, Justin, hello.
Hello. Well, first of all, I want to say that you called it a practice session, but I have great respect for what you do. So I did go in with a mindset like, hey, let's watch Angela at work. This could be not only fun but also informative. So that's another reason probably why I feel like it went well is because I take you very seriously, and I think what you do is really good and great, and you have a lot of insight.
Aw, thanks, babe. And that was, let me tell you guys, he pushes me like none other. So he doesn't just sit there and like support me. This guy came into the session like ready. Okay. He started saying things and I was like, I'm over here looking. And so, in case anybody was wondering, the way that it works for like coaching is you have like a whole bunch of different kinds of questions that surround your entire like area of work because you're like, oh, what kind of questions can I ask this client? What kind of questions? And the more powerful the questions, the better the result. Well, the thing is that I was sitting there, I had questions over here and over here. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then he started talking and I was like, ah, fuck. Like I sat there and I think I panicked. I don't know if you noticed. Did you
Yeah,
notice?
yeah, it did look like there was points where you're like, oh, we have to like Mad Lib this now, like, 'cause, of course you can't go into it knowing what I'm going to say. So, but you did good though. I mean, there's a few times where I might have hesitated because I wasn't too sure what to say, but then I would ask for you to repeat the question maybe. But I, but you made sure that you didn't just provide me the answers. So I think you did very well.
Thanks. Well, so that being said, I brought him on here because I wanted to kind of show you what exactly we were talking about. I mean, obviously, we won't go into the specifics, but I was wondering, Justin, if you would be open to sharing some of what we talked about in the session.
I mean, yeah, just real high level. We talked about stress, which I think a lot of people can relate to, and it was really an exercise in breaking down or talk. It was essentially felt like I was talking through my thoughts, and he kind of helped me stay focused. And I feel like near the end is like, okay, yeah, maybe my stress levels didn't go down, but it felt good knowing that there was someone there listening to me for going through my problems. Like, okay, there's a couple of steps I could take now to try to work on it, and not get so stressed out sometimes that I take it out on the people around me. I think that was the big takeaway.
So I really enjoyed it was very emotional for me because we love our voices heard. We love talking as individuals. And this was an opportunity essentially for his voice to be heard. And when I actually sat there and I was like, okay, I need to focus on shutting the hell up because this is his session, not mine, right? And I had to, when I did this whole redirection thing, I sat there and really thought about why do I ask the questions I ask? How do I ask these questions? How could I ask this in a more impactful way? So I really took time to ask those questions. Now, how did that feel for you to be able to just have your voice be heard without me sitting there and putting in my own input? Because, we as females, we love to put in our own input because we knew everything, right? Said
Well,
everyone ever.
I guess it felt kind of selfish, right? But I mean, it wasn't me taking advantage of someone kind of selfish. So it did feel good in the kind of in a selfish way where I could make it about me for a little bit, which is kind of nice to have once in a while. I mean, I usually do like to make it about both parties, but it did feel good to just relax and be like, okay, this is my show. I get to say what I want to say, and then I could tell like if I started slowing down or maybe needed something an idea to keep going, then you would interject and ask a question.
And what's really nice is that in the process, I was more open. Right. I was more open and curious to hear what you had to say. And so I started peeling back these layers where I was seeing you. The questions I was asking him were more so like, if you were to look through the lens of another person that you give that advice to, what would that be directed back at you? Like, what would you perceive back at you? And so with the example, it was more so like, okay, what do you tell your kids when they're stressed out? You want them to communicate. And then when there was this shift, it was when we started connecting because he started realizing, and he was kind of talking about me as the third person. So I kind of got this third eye view where I was looking in on his relationship with his fiance, and I was not that fiance. So I took my emotions out of it. And let me tell you, it was the most powerful thing because he talked about how it was very, very powerful and how he was able to realize some things. But for me, it was just as powerful because I noticed where I tend to need things, but I don't really take that time to ask him to open up. Now, I do essentially like I'll ask him how he was doing or I'll tell him that his feelings, are valid, but for him to actually see it for himself was truly beautiful. I felt more connected to him in that conversation than I have in since we started actually. So, what I want to ask you, Justin, what was some of the feelings and emotions that were going through your head as you were being allowed to express your emotions freely?
Well, I think probably being nervous about kind of being, I guess you say, vulnerable or showing a softer side. You mentioned talking in the third person. I think that that helped a little bit because I guess as the stereotypical guy thing, I don't want to look, too weak in front of my woman. So, so I mean, I think it made me hesitate a little bit. I feel like I started opening up more as we went. But I mean, I know that you say that you like seeing me vulnerable and opening up, but it's still just 37 years of being told to bottle it up and push it down. So it I feel like the first 10 minutes were kind of surface level, and then as I went, it got a lot easier, and I started feeling those emotions a little bit more. I think that was probably the biggest thing in the background. Then the other thing was, I guess it is still related. The fact that you're my fiance, I tried to be more, I guess neutral in some ways. I'm like, oh, like I feel like I want to talk about this because this goes with the session, but like, oh, is she gonna get mad at me about this later? I'm like, well, I'm already here, so let's just continue on with the session, and we'll deal with the other stuff later, which is also something we talked about in the session. Is I don't always have to beat myself up if I don't have the answers right away, or if I can't fix a problem right away. It's like, okay, we'll deal with that later, and things will be just fine.
And I remember us talking about like, okay, what if things spiraled out and got out of control? What if things weren't okay because you started opening up about your feelings?
Yeah, that is a big thing. Is we were talking about how basically I felt like sometimes I have to take everything on my shoulders, and sometimes either I have to let things just go to shit, or rely on someone else to be there to help me. Sometimes I can need two people to get both the reins, bring everything back in.
And I think that's part of the problem with so many relationships, right? Is that no matter how long you're with that person, I mean, obviously, if you just meet them, you don't have that bond. But I feel like we get those misunderstandings and we're like, "Ugh," it's kind of like when I failed and I sat there and I was like, oh my God, it's the worst thing. It's the end of the world. I should just quit right now. I spiraled out and you sat there and you were like, I feel like you're spiraling right now, you know? But we do that in all our relationships. So my relationship with my business, that was one. And then it was the relationship with you where it gave me an opportunity because I went further, right? It gave me the opportunity to actually sit with the idea that change is always possible and change sometimes needs to happen. So when we sit there and we say, oh my God, this happened. It was so bad. It's the worst, right? I always have the worst luck. But we don't forget or we forget that the biggest problem is that we don't just accept that it's just something that's going on and then we can just learn from it, right? We're sitting with those emotions so that our prefrontal cortex can then actually calm down and think clearly. Like a mom that's super stressed out, and then you give her 30 minutes away from her kids to just sit and be. And she's like, oh my gosh, like I feel so much better. I just released all this energy. I just cried it out. I was screaming, whatever the case is, right? It's that reset. And sometimes we have to reset to have the changes. Now, what do you see, Justin, in that correlation with my business and that failure with the session that we had with us being able to connect?
I guess it's that kind of like silver lining that we're usually looking for. If something goes wrong, which actually I feel like I do that a lot, and sometimes it would make you a little upset. Like, if something horrible happened, like, well, at least maybe we can try to get this done. Like, no, we don't focus on that. But we try to make the best of it. And I think it was a blessing in disguise, a silver lining where because I might not have ever done that with you if that didn't happen, because you might have went through and passed the cert right away, and then we just never would have talked about it again. It would have never been a conversation we had. So I think it's a good example of making the best of a situation. And actually, you were very resilient after you failed the first coaching one, because it's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe you said you cried in the shower, but then you got back right on it. You reached out to the school and I don't know, we call them the professors, and yeah, they worked with you, and now we're back on the horse, we're going, and we got to do this great session together. So,
And it's so beautiful, right? Because I had all the classmates. I was telling him, like, I had all these classmates that were passing it. And it was like, I had to sit there and, like, I was like, I'm actually really bummed about this. But also, like, I'm going to do big things, So just because my path is not exactly identical to everyone else, like Justin said. And that's the beautiful thing is that he said just now exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say. But I was like, in my head, I was like, I want this opportunity to be able to see what he would say. And he said exactly what I was going to say. And it's that connection. When you have that true intimate connection with your significant other, it's like this beautiful picture that's been painted of different things coming together. When you're painting a picture, you sit there and you're like, okay, well, that's cool. Those trees are cool. And oh, that's cool.
happy
Look at the
trees.
lake. Oh, that's cool. We have a sky. And you're like, but none of it even looks good together, right? And it's like, Justin's had to tell me, like, just trust it. Just keep going. Just keep going. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, oh, like it doesn't, the picture kind of comes together, right? And the more that you just trust the process and just go with it and just push forward and fully be transparent for growth, the more that picture turns into this like beautiful, wonderful, what's the word I'm looking for? Just I was going to say masterpiece, but I mean I am not Picasso or
The
Monet or
the I can live with
Bob
it piece.
Ross. The what?
The I can live with it piece.
Right, right. The I can live with that piece, which I have made those too, guys, but that's also because I'm a perfectionist. And so that's something I'm working on. But
But I love painting with you though. Actually, when we watch like the Bob Ross videos, and I can see you getting upset at Bob, and it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to go. It's like, let's keep going. He's a master. We're just trying to
my
trying to
gosh,
release stress and have fun.
damn Bob, man. Happy trees. I'm like, they're not happy. They're stressed out trees, man. They've had a hard day. They just need some rest and they just need to reset, Bob. And Bob's like, no, keep going. I'm like, screw you, Bob. Screw you. But it is beautiful to be able to sit in the life you have now. And instead of like sitting there and saying, oh my gosh, I need this and I need this, for what? At the end of the day, guys, we're all going to die. We're all, and that's not to
Yeah.
be like negative, but it's like, it's going to happen. It is, we are not, this isn't the originals. We're not going to live for 1,000 years. And, we're not, it's not those things. We are on this earth for however long that we are on this earth for. I have no idea if I'm going to die tomorrow. The people the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers, like we have no idea how long we're going to be on this planet or we're going to be alive. So it's taking what we have now and working with what we have now. And that is where you can find that beauty. And even like last night, we went after our coaching session, we actually went to race cars and we watched this race car show with all these different races. And I had never been. Justin, I don't think you've ever been, right?
I haven't been to a race like that since I was a kid, but well, actually, these races were much more exciting than the ones when I was a kid. So I kind of went into it like hollering a stag. It was super boring when I was like a teenager. I went to it, but that I actually had a good time for these races though.
It was so awesome. It was so awesome. But it was so much fun, like watching. I mean, we watched some cars crash. We watched some, we watched some different
The little kid
different
go-kart racing, that was
personalities.
pretty funny.
What's that?
The little kid go-kart racing, like they had the little
Yeah, yeah,
cars. Yeah,
the little kids, we were freezing our asses off, but the little kids, it was so adorable. They were driving and they had to stop so many times because kids kept spinning out and we're just sitting there. We're like, this is why kids don't get licensed until they're
right.
16 years old, you know, because because of that right there. And they had like road rage. They were like bumping into each other. I'm like, this is not go-karts, bro. These are legit. Like people were there was a crash. I can show you guys pictures. It was intense.
The
But
cars getting towed away. That was
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The tire was like sideways. It was so crazy. But even when I was watching it, right? I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." There's this car that was just driving is number 99 and was just cruising. And we're just like teasing about how it's like the slowest car and everybody's lapping it and all this and that, right? But, you know, what were to happen if you're on there and you don't get first place? What would happen if you crash your car? Again, you have no idea what the future holds, right? I'm sure the people that crash out literally 5 seconds into the very first race, right, babe? There was like this
right.
whole, yeah, and we were like, oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be a good time.
I mean, number 99, like he still finished the race, and yeah, it looks like he probably had a great time doing it. So
Right. And I
yeah,
bet
even
your
if he was
car is
last,
still functional. So that's
he rode,
cool.
yeah, he rode his car off on his own just fine. So
Right, right. But it's just that feeling of like, that curiosity. Like, we're going to fail so many things, but how are we going to react to it? How are we going to show who we are in those experiences? That is the true power. That is where we are able to grow and learn, especially in the relationships, because then you can actually accept the relationships you're in and focus on the present with those relationships. And that is the true power, is being able to just sit there and do a puzzle with one of your kids, or being able to cook or make granola. And I've just been enjoying life and realizing the coaching session that I had with Justin, in my head, there were so many moments I wanted to be like, oh my gosh, let me insert my own ideas of how he should proceed. But instead, I left it open and I asked the right questions. And I realized that he did have all the answers. He did know what he needed to do. Sometimes we just need to be able to see it in a different light. And so I may have failed the assessment, but I learned far more than I ever could have and was able to get a stronger relationship with my significant other. So I take my failure as the most badass win I could ever get. And just hearing just hearing my significant other's needs without me saying any of my ideas was a win in and of itself, because then I can sit there and say, maybe I should actually just give him a massage. Maybe I should sit there. It's like this morning when I give you a facial massage, we're just laying there and I just gave you a little facial massage. It's little things like that that show me, okay, I love him, he loves me, but do they know that you love them? And so that session is something that we can look back to multiple times. So, in a way, thank you for failing me for my assessment, because every path for failure, there is a new path that's waiting for you. Sometimes we just got to be pushed for it. We've got to be pushed to be able to stop, push to be able to redirect, push to be able to quit a job and start a business. And I think that is the most beautiful thing. So we're coming down to the end of it. And I wanted to ask Justin, I wanted to ask you how my failure has been, well, not really my failure, how the coaching session that we had, how that has made you feel more vulnerable and intimate with me.
Well, I think to retouch on kind of what you just said a minute ago, the redirection, knowing that we can redirect and we have options to keep going forward in a positive way. I think that's the biggest thing. And I feel
Tapping into that, right?
yeah, I think it was good to know that, hey, she she was there to help me redirect. I think it really did make me think that I need to basically reach out to you more. When I'm stressed, instead of pulling away, I need to get closer, and then we can both redirect, or you can help me, or you can just help me redirect. If you see me stressing out, I can ask you, and you can ask me one of your brilliant questions and get me back on the right track, or a new track. So, which could hopefully be a good track.
I love that. I think that is the most beautiful thing, is being able to hear how you truly feel about things. And I think it was almost heartbreaking for me to hear that the kids stressing out and me stressing out almost made you feel as if, okay, well, I'm the man of the house and I need to do these things. And it was like, wow, like I I'm sucking this guy of all of his emotions, which I know that you love, but also I love you. And so I don't want you to be depleted of your energy and your love trying to save us, right? I want you to feel the same happiness that I feel every time that you've been there when I cried, every time that you've supported me and the kids, every time the kids have had a meltdown and you've been able to keep it together. And I want to provide that to you too. And so again, I say that we we can look at your biggest failure. To my audience, you guys can look at your biggest failure, but just think about it as your setup for your next breakthrough. Just think about what amazing thing is going to transpire from this failure. Because when you can actually look at things that way, fucking powerful, right? This coaching session with him showed me that what I do isn't about checking the right boxes or using the right coaching words. It was about holding space, creating emotional safety, and unlocking the conversations that actually matter with my fiance or with any of the my kids. It's allowed me to feel like more of a partner. that cares instead of depleting. So, what I challenge you is for you all to challenge yourselves, challenge your uncomfortable moments. Listen to your body, listen to what your body needs, but then tell your body that you're done playing into its games and that you're going to work hard to make sure that you do the utmost each and every day in your life, because you only are defeated if you allow it to be the defining failure. You cannot defeat or be defeated, rather, you cannot be defeated if you do not allow it to be a defining moment and to be what you are. You are not your failures. You are the individual who has experiences and just needs to push past that discomfort, push past that tired, exhausted feeling, because that is your true defining moments. And that is what makes you the badass, confident individual. And if you're ready to step into that and are tired of sitting there and saying, someday I will. I had somebody message me the other day, and I'm not going to say who it is, obviously, but I'm going to call out that conversation because she said, I need this. I need to feel confident and happy in my relationships. And I said, so what's holding you back? And she said, I'm scared. I said, okay, how old are you? She told me how old she was. I said, look at you 10 years from now. If 10 years from now you came up to you and said, hey, guess what? You are still doing the same exact things 10 years later. Your relationships are exactly the same. Your patterns are the same. And now your kids are older and they are repeating the same cycle. What is your feeling on this? And she said, I would feel so bad about myself. I would feel like, what the heck? And I was like, and what if that person says, yeah, but you still do want the change? And you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, but it's 10 years later. What's going on? So I told her, I said, that's exactly it. You sit there and you say, oh my gosh, I need change. Oh my gosh, I need to do this. I need to do this. Stop saying it and do it. Whether you join my program, whether you get in my world, whether you comment, like, subscribe, follow, whatever. The point is that you matter. You make the changes today and you turn those quote unquote failures into the most badass version of you that has been waiting and sitting on the sidelines, just sitting there and saying, Coach, tag me in. You are so scared of the new kid playing in that game instead of just tagging him in and seeing what happens. Worst case scenario, you fail again. Whoop-de-doo. Best case scenario, you make epic, momentous changes in your life. Now, Justin, my final takeaway, I would like for you to give your last bit of advice to my listeners.
Oh man,
No
I was just getting
pressure.
so lost in the things you were just saying.
I know. I believe in you though. He's a powerful voice, guys.
I guess just real quick, yeah, just I don't remember if I already said this or not, but just when you were asking questions, right, you were basically just reminding me that I do have options. It's not I'm not stuck in the rut. I mean, I feel like hey, maybe I could have done that on my own, but it is a lot easier if you have someone basically pushing you right there and then. They're like, let's think about it. get on it. So I think the main thing is that there's always an option. And if you feel like you're getting too angry or too stressed, that means you kind of gave up at some point. So you need to backtrack and try to find those options. Because I mean, if you're not dead, you have options. So
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love that. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for joining, Justin. I love you very much. And you
I love
mean
you more.
so much. All right. All right. It's not a competition, but I love you most. Mic drop. And I'm out, bitches. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.